Hard talk.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Welcome back to this last segment, Focal Point. Hey, for thought, go to the phones here in a quick second, 888-589-8840. This is Andrea Mitchell. Now, remember, President Bush left Iraq in a stable place. They had the surge 2007. The place was pacified. Anbar province was pacified. Ramadi was pacified. Everything was stable. Then President Obama pulls out of Iraq, didn't do what was necessary to get a status of forces agreement. So they left, pulled out, and Iraq has simply fallen completely apart. And Andrea Mitchell, she's on with Senator Tim Kaine here. Senator Tim Kaine is trying to blame all of this on Bush. Bush left things in such a horrible, miserable spot that everything was inevitable. But Andrea Mitchell, MSNBC, says, yeah, there is that. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. There's some criticism for Bush and maybe for the Maliki administration, but here's what she had to say.
Let me just say there's been a lot of criticism the way this administration handled the Maliki. I mean, the Maliki government was the creation, clearly, of the previous Bush administration.
Absolutely.
But it's very clear from a lot of observers that this White House was more than willing to accept yes for an answer or no for an answer and get out of Dodge. So there's no reluctance to leave Iraq.
So that's Andrea Mitchell saying, look, it's not that simple. Everyone's trying to blame it on Bush. And she says, look, this administration kind of blew the Maliki administration, didn't handle it well. And she says, look, yeah, you can say what you want about the status forces agreement, but it was clear, Andrea Mitchell says, that President Obama wanted to get out of Dodge. He wanted to blow town. Now, here's President Obama. Remember, Jack Keane saying, look, whatever we're doing is not working. We're losing the war against ISIS. Richard Engel says this is the definition of stupidity. Robert Gates yesterday saying there is no strategy. What is President Obama worried about? We've got ISIS in the United States. We have people masquerading as refugees who are jihadists. What is President Obama worried about? Well, he's giving the keynote address yesterday at the United States Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. Here is President Obama, our commander-in-chief, telling us what the real threat to America's national security is. Let's listen.
And climate change is one of those most severe threats. And this is not just a problem for countries on the coasts or for certain regions of the world. Climate change will impact every country on the planet. No nation is immune. So I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security, an immediate risk to our national security. And make no mistake, it will impact how our military defends our country. And so we need to act, and we need to act now. After all, isn't that the true hallmark of leadership? When you're on deck, standing your watch, you stay vigilant. You plan for every contingency. And if you see storm clouds gathering or dangerous shoals ahead, you don't sit back and do nothing. You take action to protect your ship, to keep your crew safe. Anything less is negligence. It is a dereliction of duty. And so too with climate change. Denying it or refusing to deal with it endangers our national security. It undermines the readiness of our forces.
All right, so that's Barack Obama. The greatest danger we face is not refugees masquerading or not jihadists masquerading as refugees. It's not ISIS, which has taken 450 extra cops to deal with in New York. It's not homegrown radicalism, people getting radicalized right here. It is climate change. So, and you know, global warming, number one, is a non-existent problem. It is a problem that does not exist. A problem that doesn't exist cannot be a threat to your national security. Global warming does not exist. Hasn't been any in 18 years and 6 months. So it's a non-existent problem. It's fought on the premise that CO2 is the enemy. CO2 is not the enemy. CO2 is not a pollutant. CO2 is plant food. So here's President Obama, supposed to be the light bringer, the smartest man in the world, saying that the chief threat to our national security is there's too much plant food in the air, and we've got to solve a problem that does not exist. And then you wonder why our national security is at risk. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to David. Let's go to David in White House, Texas. David, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Wanted to give you, for the president, the next president's going to be a Republican, the top 10 executive orders.
Okay. And what would they be?
See what you think. Number 1, repeal Obamacare. Number 2, the federal government recognizes only marriage between a man and a woman. Number 3, no Muslims in the military. Number 4, build the fence. Number 5, deport illegal aliens. Number 6, flat tax. Number 7, abolish the IRS, EPA, the Department of Education, and National Public Radio. Number 8, reinstitute sanctions against Iran, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela. Number 9, privatize the VA hospital system. And number 10, no more mosque building in this country.
Well, man,
what do you think?
I would sign on to that in a heartbeat, David. I think that's terrific. And I think 8 of the 10 things that are on your list, I don't know where Ted Cruz hasn't weighed in on the mosque issue. I don't think Ted Cruz has weighed in on the Muslims and the military issue. But on all the rest, one of the things that Ted Cruz has said, what he's going to do the first day in office, first thing he's going to do is to reverse all of President Obama's executive orders. He's going to undo every one of them. He's going to revoke every single solitary one of them, and that would do a lot of the things that are on your list, David. All right, that's a great list. I appreciate that. Let us go to Kelly in Mount Vernon, Illinois. Kelly in Mount Vernon, Illinois, welcome. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just thinking about, you kept talking about ISIS and different things, and something that came to my mind was the specific partnership that you was talking about earlier, too. How do we know that these people that they're going to funnel over here to be in these guest worker programs and stuff aren't going to be, some kind of militant or something also, And what's the screening process? I mean, where is all this information about this, big deal that we're supposed to have that's supposed to be so good for this country, I mean, time after time we keep signing these trade agreements, and time after time we keep having, we see our economy just dropping, and I'm sure there's probably somewhere where Obama has criticized Bush for, signing the free trade agreements, with Mexico and Canada. So I wonder if there's any kind of rebuttal for that because of, him wanting to do this with the PTT.
Well, those are good questions, Kelly. To my knowledge, I don't think any of the nations that are going to be a part of this agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I do not have in front of me the list of all 12 of those nations. I don't know if any of them are Muslim countries or not. I don't know that. They could be. I don't know if anybody's got a chance to kind of look that up real quickly, see what nations are a part of this agreement. We might not even know. I mean, because this is top secret. It's locked up in a room. You got to drop your cell phone at the door. Whatever notes you take, you got to leave. I mean, nobody knows what's in it. So I don't know if anybody knows exactly who these 12 nations are. And if some of them are Muslim nations, then I guarantee you that represents a threat to our national security, because that's one of the problems, Kelly, with this whole deal is the sort of latitude that these nations have that will be a part of this agreement, the latitude that they have to bring as many workers in as they want. I mean, it virtually removes any restrictions on immigration whatsoever, and apparently these companies will be able to do the screening and decide which employees they want to bring in and which ones they don't. So that represents to me not only a loss of American jobs, but a threat to America's security. So I think those are very, very good questions. And Jeff Sessions has a great piece today talking, as part of what he released about why this trade thing is so bad. And, there's only 5 Republicans that opposed this. Virtually every Democrat was opposed to this thing. It was the Republicans that were helping Barack Obama get this thing through. It was the Republicans came to the aid of Barack Obama. And I will flat out guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, anything that President Obama is for is probably going to be bad for America. I mean, that would be the assumption. You can allow yourself to be proven wrong, but I think the assumption would be if President Obama is gung-ho for something, look out. There's a very, very good chance that it represents some sort of socialism, some kind of globalization of America, which is exactly what this does. This is all a part of President Obama cutting America down to size. We're just one of these 12 Trans-Pacific partner nations. We're not exceptional. We're not a cut above. We're no better than anybody else. We're no more exceptional than anybody else. So I think you got to watch out for this thing, and I think your questions are well spoken. You said, Walker, one of them is Brunei. Well, there you go. Brunei is a hardcore Islamic country. I mean, they're hardcore Islamic country. I mean, that's one of those places where I think they execute homosexuals. So Brunei is going to be, and richest man in the world lives there. He's going to have business interests in the United States. He'll be able to ship as many Muslim jihadists into this land probably as he wants. All right, Chris in Westfield, Indiana. Chris in Westfield, Indiana. Last call of the day. What's on your mind?
Okay, well, Brian, I just want to say that, observing all of these things that have been happening in the country, I don't know if anybody out there has watched the documentary from Dinesh D'Souza, Obama's 2016.
Yes.
But that was done a while back. And let me tell you, everything that man talked on and all the points that he made within that movie just directly goes with how the country, the direction we're going in, and what it's all about. I'm going to rephrase what Obama said. He said that global warming is the greatest threat to our national security. I'm going to rephrase that and say Obama is the greatest threat to our national security, bar none.
All right, Chris. Well, listen, I appreciate that. And in fact, it echoes what I have in my notes here. President Obama is saying the biggest threat to America's security is global warming. And my note to myself, Chris, exactly what you said. The biggest threat to our national security is a president who thinks global warming is the biggest threat to our national security. Dinesh D'Souza's movie, it's very, very good. Encourage you to pick it up and watch it. America's the name of it, and he's very prescient, seeing down the road exactly where all this is headed. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and never forget, with God's help, we are fighting a winnable war. God bless you. See you back here tomorrow. For Bush and maybe for the Maliki administration, but here's what you had to say.
Let me just say there's been a lot of criticism the way this administration handled the Maliki. I mean, the Maliki government was the creation, clearly, of the previous Bush administration.
Absolutely.
But it's very clear from a lot of
AFR Talk.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Welcome back to this last segment, Focal Point AFR Talk. Go to the phones here in a quick second. President Obama pulls out of Iraq, didn't do what was necessary to get a status of forces agreement. So they left, pulled out, and Iraq has simply fallen completely apart. And Andrea Mitchell, she's on with Senator Tim Kaine here. Senator Tim Kaine is 888-589-8840. This is Andrea Mitchell. Now remember, President Bush left Iraq in a stable place. They had the surge 2007. The place was pacified. Anbar province was pacified. Ramadi was pacified. Everything was stable. Then, trying to blame all of this on Bush, Bush left things in such a horrible, miserable spot that everything was inevitable. But Andrea Mitchell, MSNBC, says, yeah, there is that. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. There's some criticism.